Good evening. I'd like to welcome everyone to the February 15th meeting of the Newmarket Town Council. And Councillor White, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. The first item on our agenda is, actually before that, we have one councillor who is participating remotely this evening. That's Councillor Ward. And Councillor Ward, I just need to ask you two questions. The first, is there anyone in the room with you this evening?
No.
And was it impractical for you to be here this evening?
Yes, it was impractical.
Thank you. Everyone else is present. So the next item that we have is for public forum. Is there anyone from the public who wishes to speak this evening? And this is separate from the public hearings, just to be clear. And just as a reminder, it is a 3-minute limit for public comment. And if you could state your name and address, please.
Mr. Allen, Moody Point Circle. My concern is this new ordinance on tenting. Before we jump too quickly and too fast, with the amount of people displaced around, I happen to know some of the immigrants and how they're hung on paperwork and different things. You forget there's a lot of times that you use public land that you foreclose yourself from, like jamborees for the scouts, which I did when I was younger. Mike Provost, Sal Salisbury, up in Maple Crest, those will not come. I'm more concerned about the manipulation of there's certain groups that are in the field abroad that our police don't really get into the woods. Situation like Londonderry, interracial couple that got clocked, a very high-powered weapon. We're in a time where this is a really bad ordinance for the thing. I understand what it's needed. We don't need tents downtown. That's not what I'm saying. Okay, maybe zone restrictions when you write it right, zone restrictions in it where they can't be. But you have people that are coming from other areas, fires and what have you, maybe in apartments. Apartments are so expensive that the kids want to camp out for the weekend, and it may touch town's property, and they would be in violation. Now, if those people were here and didn't have the proper paperwork, you're subjugating people. I know 4 women who started from South America. Took them 5 years to get here. They each had 1 child. Time they got here, they had 3 each, and not by choice. No paperwork. So there are consequences. Immigration is not it's impossible to go through. Even if you have a wife, like I do, and married to her, it's very hard to push through. There are too many dirty fingers in the pot. People who have that one charge crossing the line on them is the stranglehold. That's your subpar ability for contractors to work them subpar, $5, $6, $7 an hour. Okay, you're not going to get $5, $6, $7 an hour. The cost of these apartments that we got around here, they're competing with.
You have 30 seconds.
There needs to be a lot more talk to this. I mean, it's really bad. And there is a lot of women spread out over the situation. You apply an ability for a cop to show up, no matter whatever thing, union, flash a badge, and nothing they can do. You instantly put them into fear. So, not a bright idea. They're coming into the food pantries and what have you, scared. They won't come into the food pantry, they got children that are hungry.
Thank you, Mr. Allen, your time's up.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else from the public wishing to speak? Oh,
Hi, I'm Stella McShara. I just bought the Mungens house on Packers Falls Road, the one around the corner. I just wanted to see what's going on in the town and understand and learn what you're all doing. So thank you.
thank you, welcome. Seeing no other members of the public present, I will close the public forum at 7:06. The next item that we have is a public hearing, and that is on ordinance 1/22/2023. It's an ordinance amending chapter 20 of the Code of the Town of Newmarket, New Hampshire, prohibiting camping in public places. And I will open the public hearing at 7:06.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just to explain what the ordinance is, it adds a provision that would make it unlawful for anyone to use any streets, sidewalks, or public place, excepting parks that are governed by the code as a camping place without written permission from the town council or its designee. Currently, you're not allowed to camp in parks. That's the only thing that we have restricted without permission from the town or the Conservation Commission. This would also do it for other parts of towns, sidewalks, parking lots, other facilities that we may have. It is starting to become an issue. You've seen it in Portsmouth. They're having issues with campers parking along the streets. I know it popped up last week that they found out one of them was a firefighter, but also they found out that people are parking in the parking spaces because it's cheaper than going to a lot, a RV park. So this is just to prohibit that on town property without permission. So say if somebody wanted to do one of those overnight fundraisers, like sleep on the sidewalk for homeless people, you'd be allowed to, but they just need to get permission beforehand.
Is there anyone from the public wishing to speak regarding the ordinance?
Still 3 minutes.
We won't hit on that RV. That RV, most of those RVs have registered plates and inspections. It's out of your domain. That's a good way to get clocked in federal court. Especially if it's a plate from out of state, they'll give them jurisdiction in whatever circuit that plate is from. I can think of a nice Montana one. It wouldn't do too well in Montana. I don't know an attorney that would take this town. It's not thought through. What has happened is the managers' unions, again, we're nose to nose with the collective bargaining units, have gotten together with their union and forcing it down the throats of everybody else in all the towns. This is not where people want to go. It's just like fighting the dam. A few people got together, wanted to tear the dam down, the thing down. Okay? See where that went. It's coming in again, collective bargaining units. They're throwing it down our throat. You need to really talk around on your walks and what have you, realize this is a very angry subject. There's been a lot of racism thrown around in this town. Racism with what's coming up. I know about racism, what was done to me. I know that era. I spent 8 years, other kids whipping me for 8 years. Okay? So I know about racism. I understand Canadian. I understand the groups. It's a bad idea. You allow other people to target people. It's not needed right now with what's going on. You're apt to get a lot of people hurt that things that don't need to occur by just throwing a fine. He wants a charge. Well, isn't that nice? So ICE can come up, grab the person, break the children away from the mother, and then lose them. Many cases of those, among a lot of other things that are happening that are being covered up. So it's not a good idea. But public, I'm standing here
You have 30
speaking for him.
seconds.
Okay? He wants that. He's jumping down me not to let me speak on it. The town manager. It's coming right down from the top from their collective bargaining units in all towns. Especially when he picked up Portsmouth. We don't have a civilian commission. Police commission, forget it. Go with a civilian, just like Wu's doing in Boston. You want changes? That takes the collective bargaining out when they screw up. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other comment on ordinance number 1? Seeing none, I will close the public hearing at 7:11. The next item on our agenda is a public hearing for ordinance number 2, 2022-2023, and it's an ordinance amending Chapter 2 of the Code of the Town of Newmarket, naming of public land and facilities and placement of memorials. And I will open the public hearing at 7:12. And did you want to?
Thank you, Madam Chair. This ordinance, we have some requests to name items after individuals in the community, but we had no policy to do so. So this was reviewed by the Ordinance Committee, and it provides a basis for, I'll just go through some highlights, for example, of commemorative naming and placement of memorials in public land or facilities located in the town of Newmarket. It will require some criteria that nothing's named after any current town official until 1 year after their employment from said service. They can't be named after any citizen who currently holds local, state, or federal office until 1 year after leaving office. Can't be named after a citizen who is not an employee of the town or did not hold local, state, or federal office unless such citizen has been recognized for exceptional service to the community. Can't be named after a local, state, or federal official or private citizen without having been first had a public hearing. And with a memorial, which a memorial would be placing a memorial in a park or some kind of situation like that, it's going to be at least 1 year expire from the date of the event in case of the person's death before the council can consider a memorial. One of the reasons there is, and it's difficult, but sometimes there's a quick reaction after a tragic death to start naming things right away. And this gives a little bit of time to breathe to make sure it's the right way to honor somebody. Finally, that it's going to, if you name something, it's going to remain unchanged for 25 years unless vote of the town council. And again, you're going to have the council would have a public hearing to make sure that the public has a chance to weigh in on any situation like that.
Is there anyone from the public wishing to speak on this ordinance? Mr. Allen.
Again, this is coming up from the south, if you haven't noticed, in these collective bargaining units and tier systems and pillar systems. The school was doing one of their routines, if you watch what was going on. It's a way of whitewashing our past, so people don't know how the town was. Doesn't understand the history. It's coming down from collective bargaining units. It is a real problem. They're running nose into it in First Circuit in Boston, down there, trying to cure problems and how the public feels. I'm more along the line, if the public, it goes out to vote for the whole public if something's going to be changed, and everybody gets a vote, not just council. On those type of things that change monuments, names, everybody gets a vote that lives here. There's some people that didn't even know that the Newmarket mine is that's the oldest mine on 108 in the Northern Hemisphere. They weren't schooled. So that says the problem of whitewashing right there. And it occurred right just a few weeks ago. So I leave that on the backs of the collective buying units wanting to wipe us off the planet. I mean, very few people, you ask the younger ones, they might know what a lamprey eel is. They might occasionally see them, but they would never see hundreds of thousands like when I was a kid. They certainly wouldn't, when swimming, would have been struck by one. So there's a lot of change going on, and it causes fights, arguments, people to be thrown off like the Diamond Bridge. Okay? That wasn't Mr. Ramsey falling. Group got drunk and threw him off the bridge. So be aware. What you do is you set up fights. We don't need the fight. We have a cultural community here, a good cultural community. Cultural families. Don't tear the families and everybody trying to work together apart. Vote should be from the people, not council members. Okay?
Yeah, 30 seconds.
He's mad at me. So,
The time's the time, 30
all
seconds.
right. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Allen.
You're welcome.
Is there anyone else from the public wishing to speak on ordinance number 2? Seeing none, I will close the public hearing at 7:17. The next item that we have on our agenda is for the town council to accept minutes, and we have one meeting, and that was from February 1st, 2023, and I would accept a motion to approve those minutes.
So move. Second.
Thank you. Are there any changes? Any questions? Seeing none, if you could call the roll, please.
Council Brayback?
Aye.
Council Lamartine?
Aye.
Council White?
Aye.
Council Blackstone?
Aye.
Council Ward?
Aye.
Council Connolly?
Aye.
Council Weinstein?
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0.
Thank you. The next item is the report of the town manager.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The first item is, I'm very pleased to announce that the Community Development Director was successful in securing a $125,000 housing opportunity grant from the New Hampshire Housing Finance Authority. This grant will assist the town in planning 2 areas. First, a needs analysis and planning. The grants are to hire consultants for the following purposes: to understand and map housing income and demographic data, including market costs, housing units, need for future expected growth in a town and region, and the affordability of a municipality's housing for all income ranges. It also reviews existing master plan sections that are related or impact upon housing development, and drafting revisions to the master plan sections for the purposes of supporting increased housing supply. And finally, for community engagement efforts to support the development and adoption of master plan revisions. That grant was for $25,000. And the second was for regulatory development. This grant is for hiring consultants to create new regulations or revise existing regulations with the primary goal of increasing the supply of housing in the community. The regulations to be created or revised include, but not limited to, zoning, subdivision, site plan, any provisions under 67421, which is housing development, local building codes, and local tax incentives. Communities must commit to making a good faith effort to bring regulatory changes to a formal vote for adoption. This grant was for $100,000. I just wanted to congratulate the director for securing this grant. Those help a lot and save a good significant amount of money to the town to get those efforts moving forward. The next, I'm going to go off my written report a little bit to give some more information, but approximately 11 a.m. on February 7th, a call came in the Newmarket dispatch of an oil spill, oil in the Lamprey River near the Heron Point. It was later determined that the source of the oil was a private heating tank at a residence on Bay Road. This oil entered the town's drain system in the area of Bay Road parking lot and went into the river. Estimated about 200 to 250 gallons of oil went into the river. DES was immediately notified, and the emergency response team is now working with fire and worked with fire rescue to contain it. DES is the agency in charge, just for the public to know. They are informing us of some items that's going on, but just wanted to give some additional information. The town does not have any further follow-up work to do at this time. The owner of the property is liable to conduct the cleanup activities by state law and hired a cleanup contractor and environmental consultant to facilitate the activities. The activities to address the situation probably include a remedial soil excavation beneath the location of the tank, supplemental clean out of the impacted infrastructure, and likely a groundwater quality assessment in the area surrounding the spill area. The supplemental clean out of the impacted infrastructure include vacuum removal of impacted solids from the infrastructure via a vac truck and a line jetting of the piping that leads to the impacted storm drain structure to the Lamprey River outfall beneath 10 Bay Road. They envision that a septic company may get involved with another consultant to work on this and work their way down the gradients of the outfall. The groundwater quality assessment will likely need to be conducted because it's highly unlikely that they'll be able to remove all contamination related to the spill, just based upon feasibility and structural limitations from where the contamination is likely present. Groundwater quality assessment will include installing monitoring wells in strategic locations surrounding the property, spill area, and gain information needed to acquire the nature and extent of the oil spill to ensure that the public and the environment are protected and adequately upon DES's groundwater and soil standard. So they are working on it. I did get a question last week, what's going on? It's going to take time. This is not something that's going to be overnight. I can tell you I went down the site as soon as the call came in, and you can see the staining of the oil on the rocks from high tide to low tide. They put out booms immediately, and this is the path that's going to be going on for a while. So they also found that a floor drain is apparently connected in some way to the town drain system. So when it leaked into the house, it went into, that's one of the ways they believe that it may have gotten to our drain system, which is illegal. So we will be looking at that as well to determine our avenues. That's the only thing that we can discuss with the individual. Probably didn't even know. It's probably something there for 100 years, and which was common, and just how you find out. So we are working on it, and we'll keep you posted on any new large developments, but it's going to be a while. The next item is the council's aware we've been monitoring our sales assessment ratio for the past year. The DRA has finalized our ratio for 2022. Overall, the town assessment to sale median price ratio is 62.7% for the 2022 tax year, which is a 10.4% drop, or a roughly 14% change from last year's of 73.1%. This is comparable to what is seen in the other communities and what is expected given the real estate market. It's basically the old situation when you say, oh, my house is assessed at $250,000. Well, would you sell it for that? No, I'd sell it for 40% higher because that's what the market rate is. So we know our assessed valuations are not up to market rate. As I stated, I'm concerned over the current state of the economy, the potential impact that it may have on our budget in the coming year. If we see interest rates and other inflationary rates increase, seems like they're slowing down a little, we'll see a decrease in home values, but we are seeing a decrease in home values now. Interest rates are so high, people aren't buying homes. The market's starting to slow down. So we don't want to go, hopefully that will correct itself before we have to do our revaluation and we don't have a bubble burst. Because then what you'd have is the market drops significantly and our values are too high. So we're just going to continue monitoring it. Again, we're supposed to be doing our statistical update in a year or two, and we'll go from there. But I just wanted to let the council know that our market value, I've only a few times I've ever seen a community get to this level, and that was probably early 2000s, right before the 2008 situation. The next is Councilor Medina asked for an update on the solar project. Again, that Revision Energy, that due to costs with the photovoltaic, I can never say that, the equipment and ever-increasing Eversource interconnection costs, the project right now is outside the industrial info resources range for Revision Energy investors, so it remains on hold for the time being. That being said, it could change with the recent climate change bill. The deal gets passed, and it would increase the solar investment. It would increase the solar tax investment and back up to 30% and possibly include some interesting points that can make it work again. I personally, in-house, we're going to have the town engineer be one of the focal points now on this. So she's going to work with revision to see if we can reignite it and when the markets are going to be there.
Was that Lindsay?
Yep, the town engineer. Yep. So we're going to try and see what we can do this year. Hopefully the economy's a little better. And that is all I have for tonight.
Are there any questions for the town manager on either his report or on the department reports? I am seeing none. So we will move on to committee reports. Are there any committee reports? Councilor Brayback.
Arts, Culture, and Tourism met last week. You'll see we have later on in our agenda a letter under correspondence to the town council, which came from our chair. We had a member who missed more than the allotted number of meetings, and there was discussion around trying to get this person to be able to attend and then trying to solicit a letter of resignation from this person. They weren't willing to do either of those things, so we had to vote to remove them from the council. So that information will come up later when we do correspondence, but just so you all know, that is what happened, and I believe then a new opening will have opened up on the committee. I've mentioned in the past that we were working with the library on a project to have installations put in those window openings in the building. Initially, that was something that kind of came from the library with us in a supportive role, but it seems like they're no longer in a position to really kind of take the lead on that, and this committee, as I've reported in the past, is trying to not take the lead on so many projects and a little bit more focus on vision and big picture things with a few projects that they identified themselves as priorities. So for now, that's on pause, and we're open to discussing it again in the future. But the projects they are working on right now are mini art galleries that are going in the Pocket Park and at the Rec. They're extremely cute. Little wooden building, they'll be about yay size being built. The one in the Pocket Park is hopefully going to be shaped sort of like the firehouse, but you'll be able to look inside, and there will be rotating literal mini gallery going on. Simultaneously in the Pocket Park, they're working where that mural is to replace that with a interchangeable installation. So those are things that are going on, but the hope is to unveil those at some point in June. And then the one at the Rec, the mini gallery at the Rec, will feature kids who are doing the new Artist Academy program. So it'll be featuring the kids' art in that little gallery. It's got kind of a crayon design theme to the box. So keep an eye out for those things.
Wonderful, thank you. Any other committee reports?
So the planning board met last night. There were some, kind of mechanical details, but the accessory dwelling unit has been completed and is submitted to the town council, which will be presented. There was one change that apparently occurred after review by town council. We had written it for the minimum stay was 90 days, but it turns out state law doesn't allow that. You can't have it any more than 30 days. So we changed it back to 30 days to be within the state, and everything else is the same. And then we've started working on the historical district overlay map to try to come up with a way to preserve downtown.
Great, thank you. Any other reports? I have an item. The licensing committee met, and we did approve the half marathon that happens annually here in downtown on behalf of Ventures Endurance, which is formerly Loco Sports, and that is for Sunday, March 26th. And that is all. So moving on, we have 3 ordinances in the second reading this evening, or resolutions. And the first is ordinance number 1, 2022-2023, and it's an ordinance amending Chapter 20 of the Code of the Town of Newmarket, prohibiting camping in public places, and I would accept a motion to approve that ordinance.
I'll make a motion to approve the ordinance. You need the 2022-23 amendment, Chapter 20, prohibit camping in public places.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Excuse me. Did you want to give any further information?
We drew it up upon request. It's an issue that many municipalities are having. This was based on the City of Manchester's ordinance, which was already vetted in the Supreme Court, so we know it's been legal. And, we haven't had the issue yet, but we'd rather have the tools in the toolbox if we need to do something than not have it there.
Thank you. Are there any questions or comments? Councilor White.
So by amending this ordinance, we're basically telling those that haven't find themselves without proper housing in the area, that although you may work here, and that although everything you have may be in the town of Newmarket, if you don't have a house and you do have some means to put up a temporary structure, don't do it in Newmarket, in public area, go find another town. And I know it doesn't say this in the change of the ordinance, but any type of sojourn, which would be termed as a temporary stay, that could be something as simple as an RV passing through town at night, stopping for the evening. That could be something along the lines of a converted school bus, a van that's been converted, a vehicle like that. So we're basically saying the same thing. You can stop, but not here in public places, which I don't know where else there is if you're passing through and you're not from here. But also I would ask, in there it does state that it can be done once authorization by the town council has been approved. How does that happen? And if it's someone that is in an immediate need, again, how does that happen? And what would be the basis for approving that temporary stay?
Well, I think there's a couple things. One, this is prohibiting, when I say camping, it's more along, well, yes, campers shouldn't be parking in the parking spaces overnight. They'll get ticketed anyways because there's time limits, right, by our own parking code. But also by setting up tents on sidewalks or in public parks or, squares. As of now, we would be enforcing that. We would provide them with housing. We get welfare to assist with them, especially if it's temporary, to help them even if they can find more permanent. I don't want to think that this is okay, move on. We would assist. It's more, hey, you're not supposed to be doing this. Let's try to find you the right services to do that. But we need the tool in the toolbox to be able to say, you can't be doing this.
We also know that the wheels of whatever you want to call it turn very slowly. In that if someone finds himself in that situation 24 hours from now, what is their...
Traditionally,
I'd say after this is effective, if it's passed.
Traditionally, you would find them temporary housing. I mean, state welfare law is we'd have to find them something. So it could be anything from a night in hotel to a shelter if they have a space available, which we know there's issues there. There's not a lot. But it's also, you asked about, well, the approval. The approval is not for someone to set up a home or a living dwelling on town property. We don't have that anywhere. It's if, as I mentioned earlier, if somebody wanted to do a temporary camping situation, if there was a bike group that came in and said, hey, you know, we're riding for a charity cross country, we're coming through Newmarket, can we stop in this location? They would contact the town first, if the council authorizes, as right now, it's the council, so they have to go to the council to get permission. If there's another designee, then that would go through that process, but as of now, it's the council that would approve it.
Counselor Raybeck.
Yes. So I hear what you're saying about we would work to find help for someone who finds themselves in need, but ultimately this resolution does say that the person would be charged a $500 fine for violating this. And if someone is in an emergency and finding themselves camping on public property, I would assume if they had $500, they would be in a hotel room or, have been able to find some other place. Newmarket does not have an overnight shelter. We do not have reliable public transportation for people to access shelters in the seacoast. So if someone suddenly finds themselves homeless tonight, you're kicked out, teen is kicked out of their house, they don't necessarily have a choice, right? There's couches, maybe, if they have a friend in town, maybe they have a car, but again, there is very, very few places where you can legally park your car overnight in Newmarket as it is. This is an anti-homelessness ordinance. I think that goes against the values of our town. We talk a lot about the issue of affordable housing, something that's brought up almost every meeting. I just don't think that this is the time to be passing something like this, especially when it's banning and punishing homelessness. We don't have the authority or capability to do that. People have to sleep somewhere. I appreciate the problem that it may be trying to solve, but we've also acknowledged that it's not a problem that's happened so far in town, and so I think it causes more harm than good.
Just a clarification, it's not a $500 fine, it's up to maybe fined up to a $100 fine, $500 fine. That usually doesn't happen until many violations or many attempts to assist. I just don't want to think anybody going out there right now and say it's a $500 fine. It's usually, it's a progressive.
Sure, but it's
Yeah.
written as, theoretically, a different council, a different police office could choose to
Right, it's
implement
maybe,
that.
it's maybe
And
fined
so,
up too. Yeah, I just wanted to clarify that.
I appreciate
Yeah.
it. Yes, up to $500.
Are there any other questions or comments?
Yeah, Counselor Ward, I just
Yes.
want to know, so one of the big things I'm hearing is stuff like concern about time, like if someone comes in, tonight, and let's say we don't meet for another 2 weeks, what do they do? So that's, and really, and how many shelters do we have contact with, or how many people theoretically could we, get places for if that became a problem?
Okay, I guess I'm going to walk it back a little to go through the welfare perspective and what we do offer for services. First of all, when we're saying getting permission, it's not, an individual who is destitute or homeless, technically, yeah, they could ask for permission, but have to go through the process of anybody else. And as of right now, you're right, the council would have to wait to have the meeting and approve it in a resolution form so it goes to the ruling. If somebody was in a situation where they're found homeless or without shelter, first of all, the police department would usually be the first step to go to. They would then provide assistance by either calling nonprofits in the area or the welfare director, who would also provide housing. Usually nonprofits are the ones who step up first because they have a more flexible ability to do it, because we have to follow state law and certain application processes, and that, you're right, that can be time consuming if we go through that process. But we do not, if somebody needs housing, we work as fast as we can to provide them housing that night. And you're right, Newmarket does not have a housing shelter. Many municipalities in the Seacoast don't have housing shelters. The only two large ones in the Seacoast are Crossroads in Portsmouth and the ones at the the Tri-Cities open in Stratford County. Other than that, it's a lot of smaller places that people provide assistance, even knowing that some churches provide sanctuary for some evenings. But it's not, I don't want anybody thinking that this is not a situation where nobody's gonna work with them to try to find assistance. And it's more to prevent long-term shelters on public property. And that's the only, and, Councilor Lamatina approached for assistance to writing, we did. And this was the model that's being used across the state.
Councilor Lamatina.
No, nobody's gonna come along and say, oh, you have to move on. It's just not gonna happen. Like Steve says, there are a lot of things that the town can offer people assistance. Okay, but nobody's gonna just throw somebody out and say, move on. So,
Councilor White.
I'm going to ask for a clarification, even that, as I said before, it doesn't state parking of RVs, converted buses, converted vans. If someone was coming through the area and decided that Shannon Park looked like a good place to park for the evening, is that person then in violation of the code as it would be changed?
If they are setting up something, a temporary structure, or sleeping, hanging clotheslines, carrying cooking activities, and making a fire, yes.
So temporary structure again would be their vehicle.
I don't believe it would be. I think this is a registered, no, because a structure is not registered. A vehicle is registered. So if they bring it in, they'd follow underneath the parking situation. So 2-hour parking in certain areas. So, I mean, if you're on Main Street, if you're on Main Street, if there's a 2-hour parking limit, there's a 2-hour parking limit. If you're in a longer situation, in theory, they could stay longer.
So this doesn't really address RVs.
Just
Apologies.
one at a time, please. Councilor Lamatina.
Okay, I'll just add, we already have rules and regulations like this that apply to conservation areas, the parks. Okay, they already have no camping without proper authorization. So those rules already exist in Newmarket. This is just to cover the non-park places, like the streets, whatever.
Did you have another comment, Councilor Grayback?
I was just trying to summarize what I thought I was hearing to make sure I was understanding properly, which was that that this doesn't really protect against RVs or,
No.
or parking.
No.
That our parking ordinance kind of already covers it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It would if you set up something to make it, if you're in a spot, but you set up your chairs in the next spot,
Sure, right.
you gotta go. That's
Gotcha.
camping versus, yeah.
I'll just add that I've had conversations with the police chief and other police officers about the housing and homeless or unhoused individuals in Newmarket, and it hasn't typically been an issue. The reason that it's not an issue, or isn't typically an issue, is that we don't have a lot of services. We're not on a bus line. We don't have an affordable grocery store within walking distance, or affordable for many people. We're lacking a lot of services as it is, so people tend, if they are unhoused, tend to move on. I will also say that I can think of at least one very recent example of an individual who was sleeping in various places. I mean, he was around in Newmarket off and on for several weeks, and he may come back. I'm not really sure. And I know that the police, in particular, did as much as they possibly could to assist this individual multiple times. The Newmarket Community Church was involved and offered to assist. And so there are agencies. I don't know about welfare. My guess is that he probably would have refused any services through the town. But people certainly stepped up, and I have every confidence that that would continue to be the case if there were people who were experiencing that kind of a situation. So that's just my.
And one thing I want people to be clear about for welfare for the town, you don't have to be a resident of Newmarket to receive welfare from the town of Newmarket. You just have to be located in the town of Newmarket. I was in another community that was on a major thoroughfare where there was the only town hall on the thoroughfare, and we would receive individuals a lot because it was the only place to receive assistance. So it's that state law, and state law requires us to provide assistance. So that's I just want to make sure that that's clear as well. It's a very it's actually a colonial law still that you technically that there's certain individuals who are the overseer of the poor. That's what it's called, and they have to provide assistance to people in the community, whether they're residents or not, if they're they require it. So it does happen.
And as you mentioned earlier, I think that, I mean, our welfare department, not our in Newmarket, I would say probably throughout the state, but it is very challenging for people to access. It's not that it's just challenging. It's challenging to jump through hoops, and when you're already in such a high stress part of your life, it can be overwhelming to think about providing paperwork and all the necessary documentation. And so it's not a reflection on Newmarket's welfare, it's an issue with welfare in general. And we've seen that here in Newmarket, that the use hasn't been there. I mean, we see that in the department reports. Because it is challenging for people in an already challenged atmosphere. So I just wanted to mention that about welfare.
Just closing.
Councilor White.
Closing thoughts. I agree with welfare in general. I believe, and this is my own personal belief, that welfare is constructed in such a way to discourage people from applying. Makes absolutely no sense, the hoops that have to be jumped through for someone who's already down on their luck and out on their own to go to ask for assistance. Then it takes a certain level of swallowing of one's pride in order to do so in the first place. And then you give them, you just fill that out and bring it back. Discouraging. And my last comment would be, I think the amendment to this chapter is just a very poorly timed at a time when the housing's expensive as it is, with rates increasing on a very regular basis. I just think it's poorly timed.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, if you could call the roll, please.
Council Brayback?
No.
Council Lamatina?
Aye.
Council White?
No.
Council Blackstone?
Aye.
Council Ward?
No.
Council Conley?
No.
Council Weinstein?
Aye.
Motion fails.
And the next item, thank you. The next item is ordinance number 2, and that's 2022-2023, amending Chapter 2, naming of public land and placement of memorials. And I would accept a motion to approve that ordinance.
Motion.
I'll second.
Sorry.
And it was seconded. Did you want to say anything
It's
else?
what I said in the public hearing. We have no policy in place right now to name things after individuals. Sometimes it's nice to name things after individuals if committed to the community, but yeah, the last thing I think something was named, somebody said it's named that, And it should be a little bit more formal than that, and we have to check to make sure that the community wants that something named after an individual. And I know I've gotten a request recently to name something, and I think it's just something, we need to have a process. And again, one of the sad things is, after a tragic event or a large event, people react quickly. I mean, there's a reason why you can't get your picture on a stamp for a number of years, or you can't get something on the federal level, because we want time to settle and make sure things are represented correctly. So this is just a way that we can do that on the town level.
Are there any questions? Councilor Conley?
I have a couple questions. Or actually, maybe it's just like a confirmation. So it sounds like right now, the process for naming something often just happens because somebody's like, oh, I'll just do this because I'm building this or I'm adding this or whatever. And what this is designed to do is to institute a process whereby people could apply, people could weigh in on the public, and make sure that we've got public input and have something in place so that it's a little more structure.
Right. And even if it's the council can come up and say, look, we just built this building, and Councilor Smith did a lot for the community, and we'd like to name it after them. Or there was a veteran who passed away, a Medal of Honor winner who was from town. We'd like to name a park after them. Those kind of situations. And it just gives a process, and people can comment. Sometimes, and you see it now because you can get information on everybody everywhere on the internet, that you find out you named something after somebody, and then you shouldn't have. So this is sort of also give that opportunity of the public hearing and say, hey, everybody, let us know if there's reason why we shouldn't or why we should. So it just gives it a little more structure.
Any other comments? Seeing none, if you could call the roll, please.
Council Brayback?
Aye.
Council Lamatina?
Aye.
Council White?
Aye.
Council Blackstone?
Aye.
Council Ward?
Aye.
Council Conley?
Aye.
Council Weinstein?
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0.
Okay. And we have a resolution, and that's Resolution 2022-2023-32, amending Council Rules Section 6. And I would accept a motion to approve that resolution.
I'll make a motion to approve Resolution 2022-23-32, amending council rules and procedures, introducing legislation.
Second.
Did you want to speak?
It just, I discussed at the last meeting, Councilor Blackstone and I have gone through a test run already for a resolution that'll be introduced at your next meeting. It's just, again, it gives an opportunity that we both know exactly what we want to do. We know what the council wants to do. We get a chance to review it, talk with staff, make sure it's set up the correct way. We're never going to stop a piece of legislation because that's your prerogative as counselors. But it just, we can help the process, and it just more structure.
Are there any comments? I would just say that I fully support this, and I think that certainly the chair or the town manager shouldn't be the gatekeepers of what is on the agenda, and so I think that I think it's very positive change. So, seeing no other comments, if you could call the roll, please.
Council Brayback?
Aye.
Council Lamatina?
Aye.
Council White?
Aye.
Council Blackstone?
Aye.
Council Ward?
Aye.
Council Conley?
Aye.
Council Weinstein?
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0.
Oh, there it is. Okay, we have one nomination, and that is for Timothy Littlefield, and I'm just pulling it up, to serve as a cemetery trustee with a term expiring April of 2023, and I would accept a motion to approve that nomination.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Any
Stand
comments?
carries that.
Any comments? No. Other than he's a good guy. Counselor
He's a
White.
good guy.
If you could call the roll, please.
Council Brayback?
Aye.
Council Lamatina?
Aye.
Council White?
Aye.
Council Blackstone?
Aye.
Council Ward?
Aye.
Council Conley?
Aye.
Council Weinstein?
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0.
Thank you. And we have several resolutions or ordinances in the first reading.
So you could tell the town manager's going on vacation.
Yeah. And so the first one I will read in name only, because it is very lengthy and no one wants to hear my voice. It is ordinance number 3, 2022, 2023, an ordinance to amend Chapter 32, zoning, Article 1. In general, Section 32-5, nonconformity. Section 32-9, special use permits. Section 32-11, definitions. And Article 7, Section 32-234, accessory apartments of the municipal code of the town of Newmarket, New Hampshire, and zoning ordinance adopted 2/14/1996 as amended through February 15th, 2023.
You also have a public hearing at your next meeting.
And sorry, I think there's an easier way for me to navigate
is.
through here, right?
Click on the new business. First reading, yeah.
Right.
Click it. And then on the bottom.
And I
says
go to the next
one.
item,
Yep.
okay, all right, sorry. Yeah. The next item is Resolution 2022-2023-33, readopting the optional veterans tax credit. Whereas the town of Newmarket currently offers an optional veterans tax credit of $500 of their tax bills annually for those who served and were honorably discharged in accordance with RSA 7228. And whereas it is the wish of the town council to extend the exemption to all veterans. Now therefore be it resolved by the Newmarket Town Council that in accordance with RSA 72:27A, Roman numeral 4, readopts the provisions of the optional veterans tax credit, RSA 72:28, in the amount of $500 to include not only veterans who have been honorably discharged, but also those who have served at least 4 years and are continuing in service in the armed forces. If this does not pass, the optional veterans tax credit will no longer be in effect, and the standard veterans tax credit of $50 would apply as of April 1st, 2023. First reading, February 15th, 2023. And the next resolution is Resolution 2022-2023-34, adopting the all veterans tax credit. Whereas the town of Newmarket currently offers an optional veterans tax credit of $500 of their tax bills annually for those who served and were honorably discharged in accordance with RSA 72:28, and whereas it is the wish of the town council to extend the exemption to all veterans. Now therefore be it resolved by the Newmarket Town Council that in accordance with RSA 72:27A, adopts the provisions of the all veterans tax credit, RSA 72:28B, in the same amount as the optional veterans tax credit currently at $500. First reading February 15th, 2023.
Trust me, it's confusing for us too.
Yeah.
Thank you.
It's just to make sure everyone gets covered by April.
Okay. The next item is Resolution 2022-2023-35, wastewater collection system evaluation. Whereas the Newmarket Sewer Department has received a $100,000 American Rescue Plan Act planning grant to evaluate its wastewater collection system. And whereas the wastewater collection system evaluation will identify sewer system problem areas, improve the department's GIS mapping and asset management plan, and whereas the total scope of work is $120,000 plus $20,000 for traffic control and contingency for a total project cost of $140,000. Now therefore be it resolved by the Newmarket Town Council that the Newmarket Town Council authorizes the wastewater collection system evaluation project for $120,000 plus $20,000 for traffic control and contingencies. In addition, the Town Council authorizes the withdrawal of $40,000 from the Sewer Capital Reserve Fund and the town manager to enter into necessary agreement to complete the wastewater collection system evaluation project. First reading, February 15th, 2023. The next item is Resolution 2022-2023-37, Lead and Copper Rule Assistance. Whereas the town has received a $50,000 grant to meet the lead service line inventory, LSLI, requirement of the new lead and copper revision, and whereas the town is required to meet the LSLI requirement of the new lead and copper revision, whereas the New Hampshire Department of Environmental Services has approved Wright Pierce's scope of work, now therefore be it resolved by the Newmarket Town Council that the Newmarket Town Council authorizes the town manager to enter into an agreement with Wright Pierce for $50,000 to help the town of Newmarket meet the LSLI requirement. First reading, February 15th, 2023. The
Deep breath.
next item, getting a workout today, is Resolution 2022-2023-36, sewer cleaning. Whereas the town of Newmarket is required to maintain its wastewater collection system, and whereas due to the labor climate, the sewer department is not at full staff, and whereas the department received quotes for sewer cleaning, and Truax Corporation submitted the lowest quote, and whereas the fund will come of the sewer department budget, out of the sewer department budget. Now therefore be it resolved by the Newmarket Town Council that the Newmarket Town Council authorizes the town manager to enter into an agreement with Truax Corporation for the sum of $14,700 to clean Newmarket's wastewater collection system. First reading, February 15th, 2023. You're not allowed to go on vacation anymore.
This is another one.
Yeah, this one I'm gonna. So this is Resolution 2022-2023-38, adopting street pole banner policy, and I will read that in name only, as it is, again, a very lengthy one. These are all available on the town website. What just happened? Oh, that was the last one? Oh. So, is there any correspondence?
Yes. We have a letter from the Arts Commission Chair. Dear Newmarket Town Council, Commission member Annika Bornstein has not been present for the last 6 meetings for medical reasons, which she reported to me via email on November 3rd, 2022. Since no letter of resignation has been received on behalf of the Arts and Tourism Commission, which voted unanimously at a January 3rd, 2023 meeting, I hereby request the replacement of Annika on our commission, roughly Deborah Smith, Chair. Process. If it is the wish of the council to bring this up, any board, commission, or committee member may be removed from office after a public hearing and upon written findings of inefficiency, neglect of duty, or malfeasance in office, which of one is not attending. The removal, public hearing must be held, and then a final vote at the conclusion of the public hearing, and the town council shall vote in regard to a motion for removal, make written findings as to inefficiency, neglect of duty, or malfeasance in office of the municipal official subject to hearing. So my recommendation would be that if it's the wish of the council, we will notify the individual via certified mail that a public hearing will be held at a future meeting. Maybe not the next one because of the volume that you're already going to have, but at the following one, and then at that hearing, the individual can either come in and say, this is, I'd like to stay, this is why, or in the council ultimately would be serving as the judge to whether or not it's removed. But the ordinance does state that if the board, commissioner, committee member is absent for more than 1/3 of the scheduled meetings or gatherings within a given year, that's one of the reasons why. Unless a majority grants a special excuse due to extenuating circumstances. Way to go? Yeah.
The next item that we have are closing comments. Are there any closing comments?
I just forgot to include something in my committee report, if I could add it. So the chair of the Arts, Culture, and Tourism Committee submitted a proposal to the University of New Hampshire to hire a summer fellow who is working with, who would be working with the ACT and the Historical Society. The project is around developing an app for the historical walking trail. Not unrelated is that I manage that fellowship program professionally, but I was not the decider about who got approved for it. But I am now managing the process of advertising this position and trying to find a UNH student who would be a good fit for the role. But I think it's a really exciting opportunity for the town to have a digitized version of this historical walking tour that was been created. So keep an eye out. And if you know any UNH students who are in-state residents who would want to apply for that, they should do so.
Cool. Any other? Councilor Blackstone.
Yeah, so I have received an email from John Kuiper, who's a former town councilor, and he asked me to read this at this meeting. I did submit this to Steve and suggest we make it a correspondence, but that didn't work for some reason. So I'd just like to read it. Dear County Council, our town is in need of more parking downtown. I opened my business in 2014. There were 6 other restaurants downtown. Now there are double that number. In that time, the amount of parking has decreased due to the mill use of the municipal lot. I would urge council and planning board to create any new parking possible. 2 15-minute parking spots next to crack sales will be a great start. That's the one that we had previously discussed. Given inflation, rising wages, lack of affordable housing for employees, lack of parking for employees, lack of parking for customers, it would make much more economic sense for me to convert my commercial space to residential space if I am legally bound to use my building as a commercial space, which it currently is. As per the zoning rules, the town has an obligation then to assure that there's ample parking available so that my business can succeed. Many small steps have been made, such as hiring parking enforcement, but more needs to be done with a sense of urgency. I would urge the planning board and town council to form a committee to develop the post office into a parking structure as had been initiated by the NCDC. This undertaking will require the full engagement of our town resources to battle the juggernaut of bureaucracy, which is the Postal Service. The Postal Service is a blight in our downtown. The building is half empty and the space will be much better utilized. Thank you, John Kuiper.
Just,
Thank you.
Counselor, the last email I received from you was on February 8th, and this one came on the 9th, so I didn't get it, so
Oh,
I apologize for that because,
okay.
yeah.
So is that the procedure in the future?
Yeah.
No,
That's the last one I got from you.
I must have been my mistake. I apologize.
No, that's okay, I just
Yeah.
want to make sure.
Any other closing comments?
I want to thank the council for attending tonight's workshop. It was kind of heavy, I think, a little bit on community power as opposed to the Newmarket portion, but the next part is going to be the real meat of everything, where we get into the actual, like I say, the risk management and the obligations of what the town is going to be. My gut feeling is I don't see that coming to the council or until late summer, early fall, and that gives us like the winter to kind of mull over that, look at all that.
Thank you. And I agree, it was heavy on the coalition, but I think it's an important information to understand. So, heavy but necessary. Seeing no other comments, our next meeting is March 1st, and I will consider us adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm sorry if I implied that you got bars on your drug or something.
Oh, no.
Taking it off right now.
Thanks.
Thank you for attending.